Sitting in shocked silence, troops at Fort Bragg listened as Donald Trump delivered a rambling, off-the-rails speech that revealed exactly how he views power. Throughout his presidency, Trump has tried to fundamentally reshape how Americans see their government, who it serves, who controls it, and whether checks and balances even matter anymore. He wants people to believe the system belongs entirely to him, that it exists to serve billionaires and himself, and that he alone decides how it is run. In his view, troops answer to his words and his tweets, not to a constitutional chain of command. That belief that he is fully in charge was effectively admitted out loud as the crowd stood frozen. And as always, it all started with Trump airing his personal grievances.
You know, the first time I won, but they say I didn't win the popular vote. You know I did. I won it by a lot, but they say I didn't. So every time they'd introduce Donald Trump, who didn't win the popular vote, but he, you know, whatever. I said, I don't ever want that to happen again. But we did. We won everything, and this is amazing.
This clip is an important place to begin because it reveals exactly how Donald Trump sees the military, especially when he's speaking directly to troops. I keep coming back to this moment because it says everything. When the Stanley Cup champions visited the White House, Trump marveled at how big and athletic they were, then immediately added, "But I have the United States military." That wasn't a joke. That's how he thinks. In Trump's mind, the military belongs to him. A personal extension of his power, a way to compensate for his own insecurities and project strength through force. So when he stands in front of service members and rants about how he really won, how he never got credit, and how those who crossed him will pay, it's clear what he's implying and who he thinks will carry that out. That mindset also explains why he immediately pivoted to attacking Roy Cooper in the very same speech.
We can't do that without the leaders, and your ex-governor is not one of them. It'd be a disaster if he got in. And one of the things that I just mentioned and saw, you saw the monster that killed an innocent young Ukrainian girl a couple of months ago, slitting her throat from behind. And this was the man, the governor, that allowed this man to get out and to do that. We don't do that. We don't do that. Everybody knew he was trouble. Many, many crimes, one of the worst pasts I've ever seen. And she sat down, she had her throat slit. And that's not going to happen with Michael Watley, that I can tell you.
It was Donald Trump who denied disaster relief to North Carolina during his first term, which makes it even more absurd that the media let him push the narrative in 2024 that Joe Biden and VP Harris weren't doing enough to help the state during its crisis. North Carolina may lean red, but it has had Democratic leadership, including Governor Roy Cooper, especially after the GOP nominated a deeply controversial candidate. Yet despite the facts, Trump repeatedly withheld disaster assistance from the state. Now, Kristi Noem is reportedly holding billions in FEMA funds from states, reflecting an administration that prioritizes political agendas over effective governance. And even as serious crises unfold, Trump remains focused on promoting personal projects, like the Melania film, instead of addressing the responsibilities of leadership.
And now she's a movie star on top. Can you believe? She did a movie. It's the hottest thing you've ever. It's crazy. Congratulations, by the way. Very good. You know who loves that movie? The ladies. They go see it 3-4 times. That's what I heard. They go see it.
So there he was, speaking in front of U.S. troops, bragging about winning the popular vote in an election he didn't actually win, falsely claiming he has never lost an election, attacking a former governor, and even promoting the Melania movie. Not exactly a productive moment, but if you really want to understand where Donald Trump is mentally, all you have to do is listen to the clip that follows, where he complains about political correctness in warfare and fixates on how silent the troops are as he speaks.
People to join our great forces. We ended the scourge of political correctness in our military. We renamed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Think of it We won World War I. We won everything. World War II. And everything before, during, and a little bit after, except we fought a little bit differently. We fought to be politically correct. We were a politically correct force with the presidents. But now we have a real force, and you see that with what we did in Iran with the B-2 bombers.
To me, Donald Trump clearly thinks this is a hype moment, that people will cheer when he says we no longer fight politically correct wars. It's the same energy as Pete Hegseth ranting about beardos and weirdos, but what Trump is really admitting is far more serious. What he mocks as politically correct war is actually the system of rules created after World War II, largely through the United Nations, in response to mass destruction, nuclear bombings, and historic war crimes. These weren't soft rules. They were safeguards meant to prevent humanity from repeating atrocities. Trump dismisses all of that. He signals that he believes the American military belongs to him personally, that he is bound by no laws of war, and that only his own morality guides his actions. That mindset is dangerous, especially when he openly talks about using the military however he wants, abroad and at home, including floating ideas about deploying ICE or troops around elections. When Trump says we're not doing that anymore, he's saying the rules don't apply, that the government is his, the military is his, and power rests with him alone. That's why it's critical for Congress to reclaim its Article 1 authority beyond just tariffs, because if they don't, Trump's unilateral view of power only grows more dangerous. And while global leaders may feel some reassurance hearing alternative American voices at the Munich Security Conference, especially figures like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Gavin Newsom, it's clear we need those voices now more than ever. What AOC said next, in particular, was an important reality check.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I think one of the connections and relationships that is under discussed, particularly in the security space, is the fact that I believe we're seeing an economy around the world, including in the United States, that extreme levels of income inequality lead to social instability and drives, in a sense, in authoritarianism, right-wing populism, and very dangerous domestic internal politics. And that is a direct outcome of not just income inequality, but the failure of democracies over decades to deliver. The failure to deliver higher wages, the failure to rein in corporations. The point was just made about antitrust. In the United States, antitrust is such a foundational bedrock value, not just because the ascent of monopolies create the abuse of power in corporations and market power, but there is a level of market concentration and corporate consolidation where a massive company can get so big that its consolidated power can rival that of nation states. And democracies, we have elected leaders, and in massive corporations that then begin to consume the public sector, gobble up these spending, they start to call the shots. And we're starting to see this with some of the billionaire class throwing their weight around in domestic politics and in global politics as well. So it is of utmost urgent priority that we get our economic houses in order and deliver material gains for the working class, or else we will fall to a more isolated world governed by authoritarians that also do not deliver to working people.
Defeating Donald Trump isn't just about winning the next election cycle or beating Republicans at the ballot box. Trump is a symptom, not the entire disease. His rise was fueled by deep economic anxiety, widening income inequality, and the erosion of trust in institutions that many Americans feel have failed them, and in some cases, institutions we've allowed to weaken ourselves. That's why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez framing this as a structural problem tied to inequality is such an important point. If we don't address those root causes, the conditions that produce Trump will remain. At the same time, it's critical to reassure the world that the United States can still be a reliable partner. Gavin Newsom, who has been active on the global stage, from Davos to international climate gatherings, is now directly pushing back against Trump's narrative, reinforcing that message both at home and abroad.
I hope, if there's nothing else I can communicate today, Donald Trump is temporary. He'll be gone in 3 years. California is a stable and reliable partner in this space. And it's important for folks to understand the temporary nature of this current administration in relationship to the issue of climate change and climate policy.
At least we still have leaders who don't embarrass us on the world stage, and for that I'm genuinely grateful. We'll be sharing more clips from the Munich Security Conference, including Democrats who are directly calling out Donald Trump over on Shift. Thanks for watching, and if you stuck around at the end, you can drop the blue heart in the comments, and until next time, I will see you soon.